Evo.
Jedna stranica nema.
Ja sve pozdravljam i otvaram današnji izvješći seminar 1, gdje će kolega Jelić ispričati nešto koliko vidim opažanjima tuče i tučenostima olujama u Europi, a tako ne može biti bolje nego što je. Hajde, izvolite.
Okay, thank you, Professor, for introduction. Thank you all for coming. So, as mentioned, I will talk about hail observations and hailstorm characteristics in Europe. As we are all witness in the last several decades, and media started to cover it more and more, hailstorms are something to consider. Like several days ago in Karlovac, like the most famous picture these days in our circles, did like total damage over the car. If followed by strong winds, it can even harm the house walls. Agricultural sector is very under the influence of hail, and in like 2013 in Germany there was a hail during June which caused approximately 3.6 billion euros of damage, out of which only 2.6 was claimed damage, so people did get refunds and the rest of it went away. So, scientific community started to analyze hail like 50 to 60 years ago, and finally, 2016, we had the first review article including the hail in Europe by Punge and Kunz from Karlsruhe Institute. And a year later, they also published one estimate based on radar data. So I will also talk slightly about the results there. So first I will give just a brief introduction, talk about about the methodology in hail analysis, then show some spatial distributions of hail around Europe, show the Croatian standpoint, how far did we do, and then briefly highlight the methods and approaches which are developing in the last, let's say, 15 to 10 years. Then I will go to the next article, show their analysis and give some conclusion. Basically, to get hail, you have to have heat convection, very strong updrafts, plenty of super cold liquid, very high cloud tops, and of course a long lifetime of the system, so the hail can generate itself and start falling down. Usually the single cell cumulonimbuses are not enough to generate significant hail or bigger hails, but already multi-cell systems of cumulonimbuses, mesoscale convective systems, or even supercells, of course, can generate then the damage we saw on the pictures before. With respect to recommendations and some ground rules, the only one is that the World Meteorological Organization suggested that we consider all ice pellets higher than 5 millimeters as a hail. This is based on some studies which showed that the crops and soft plants are affected by pellets which are equal or larger size than 5 millimeters. If you are considering overall damage which one storm can produce, then it will usually be less than 500 kilometers square of influenced area, but then the researchers in the States showed in the late 80s that around 80% of all hail-bearing storms actually are showing the trace of less than 40 square kilometers, and the median of their sample was around 20 square kilometers, which makes hail very hard to measure actually, because it can pass through your measuring sites and observation systems. Generally, how do we collect data? The simplest one is that you have a weather station with an observer who then observes hail, or if that station has a hail pad, then we have a solid proof. Of course, then we can use insurance data or insurance claim damage claims. Nowadays, or last, let's say, 10 years, media is giving them a lot of information and is reporting all significant hails around the world. And even the older media, like one author from 2007 from Finland, managed to publish a paper based on media claims that was like 60 or 70% of his data set was based on media throughout 100-year-old papers. Then, of course, everybody has a cell phone and can be a storm spotter, and there are modern apps which can then process those figures and so on. Then, of course, those are all some type of in situ measurements. We have some proxy measurements like radar information, satellite information, or nowadays the lightning information, which can be dissolved to some information about hail. Unfortunately, there is no standardized approach to hail measurements. Each country or each region has their own methods how best will they measure the hail. For instance, if we have an observation station, it works only during the day, and if it's a synoptic weather station, so it measures only 3 times per day, so a lot of data will go to waste, or at least we will get information about the hail day, nothing about precise time or size and distribution, maybe with a hail pad. So yeah, as I said, scarce measurements, and of course if the observer doesn't have any instrument to measure the precise palette as mass or radius, it's submitted to a lot of subjectivity in the estimate. Talking about operational forecasting of hail, there is nothing working. There are some attempts recently, but global climate models and regional climate models don't have anything. Nowadays we are trying to use some proxy data post-process and try to get some hail distribution in terms of using cape, wind shear, or freezing level height to extract something which can resemble hail probability. Typically, when observing hail, we differ between hail event, hail case, and hail date. So hail event is any hail event you observed. If the system produced hail 1 kilometer away, the person also witnessed the same event. So we combine them into the hail cases. And usually if we want to compare them with other studies, we tend to push all hail cases which occurred on a particular day into a one hail day. The most common term then is a hail frequency, which is basically you count up all hail cases or hail days through 1 year or period and get some average yearly value. And if you are observing it in situ, like eyewitnessing or hail pad measurements, then our hail frequency will tend to have values which are in average less than 1 hail day per year. If we include bigger areas like hail pad areas or several in situ measurements, then of course our hail day frequency will increase, but then there is a very big problem of defining what area is represented with how many stations and how will we compare that with some different region which has completely different setup. So the best thing we can do nowadays is just compare in situ measurements with several locations. Insurance data usually don't come with daily informations, but rather in several days, because they just want to wait until the hail passes and then go and collect the claims for certain certain period within a certain area. And then this frequency is very sensitive on a threshold we set. So World Meteorological Organization did set up the parameter to 5 millimeters and above, but each country could have their own definitions of size and tend to keep them because they want to have a homogeneous, let's say, climatology. So France does have like 8 millimeter threshold, Serbia has 2 millimeter threshold, and that really influences the end result with respect to the hail frequency. So one researcher showed that actually 6.25 is a very good threshold for corn and soya analysis. Then they showed that the buildings and the solid properties actually suffering with the hail above 2.5 millimeters. And when interpreting the results, we really have to be aware of those informations because otherwise we will be misguided. standard way, once you have a time series, is actually to see how the hail behaves throughout the years, then to see the annual cycle, diurnal cycle, and probably try to do some trend analysis. With this paper, there are some reports of positive or negative trend, but in overall picture, there was nothing solid to lean onto and say, okay, the hail will increase or decrease. Regarding annual cycle, most of the countries reported some summertime activity. As we go towards the north, this summertime decreases. So in Finland or Sweden, the hail activity is mid of the June to the mid of the August, and no hail away. But then again, if you go towards the Mediterranean, this annual cycle flattens up, and we can have hail throughout the year. Like I'm currently working with the Istria data, and there is tendency that around 30% of hail actually goes toward the winter period. And as we go downwards towards the Greece, they actually have annual cycle turned upside down. They don't have any hail during the summer, but most of the hail during the winter period, because the freezing level is too high there, and the hail, even if it generates, it melts down before it's recorded on the ground. With respect to size distribution of microdynamics, this review doesn't give any information. Does that mean that nobody did any research in that direction, or they just didn't cover it? I don't know. The fun thing to do is actually collect European Severe Weather Database data and see what are the maximum values, maximum radial diameters of the hail recorded throughout Europe. And we have formal records from 14 to 15 centimeters big, so they measured like the biggest diagonal they managed to find on the stone. And one is reported in Germany and two were reported in Czech Republic. If we go to a bit smaller pieces, around 80 to 100, we can see that this bubble is present throughout the Europe, regardless of how north or how south we go. And Croatia managed to report two of them, Mursko Središće and Hvar, with radius greater than 8 centimeters. Next thing authors did, and I use this figure because it's amazing. It's amazing to make something like that, although it's not so useful, but the text explains it quite well. The majority of hail activity concentrates around high mountains and high hills. So of course the Black Forest mountains in Germany, so Germany made actually radar estimates of their hail on the national scale. There is in Black Forest, and it tends to be between 1 and 2 hail days per year. All the way around the Alps we have a very high hail activities from 2 to 3 hail days per year, although in the central part of the Alps there is nothing, which is expected, so the systems are stopping from one or the other side. Then we have Po Valley, which is close to the Alps, which measures 2 to 4 hail days per year. France, Massif Central also measures high hail, although they have 8 mm threshold, so not all the hail which we would consider hail is included in that research. Spain has the Pyrenees and Iberian mountains systems, which are also measuring above or around 2 hail per day. Hungary also measures at the east and at the southwest between 2 and 2.3 hail days per year. Poland, which is deep in the continent, also measures at Tatra mountains or around them around 2 hail days. So let's see what we did, and it was a bit encouraging and a bit unpleasant actually to read the following sentence. It says, although severe hailstorms occur on a regular basis in Croatia, the available scientific literature is quite limited. So, but on the other side, the bright side of the story, we are one of the 6 countries in the Europe which actually has operational healthcare network. Aside of us, there is France, Spain, Italy, Austria, and Greece who has them. So what we did, or basically Damir Počekal did, is published 3 papers which are all recognized in this article, plus 1 conference paper which they also include. talking about the continental part of Croatia, reporting 2.4 hail frequency, 2.4 hail days per year as a maximum frequency, concentrated around Karlovac, Zagreb, towards Varaždin, and some parts towards Slavonia. And then it was interesting to see that Serbians actually used just the main weather stations, which we also have, and make climatology and managed to publish it in also atmospheric research, claiming with 2 millimeter threshold between 1 and 3.5 hail days per year here in this south region. Of course, then there are some countries which didn't publish anything, but Slovenians offered the radar data from 2004 to 2011. They published this year formal, I think that this was the shared figure, this was not formally published. But I know that the hail frequencies of this radar figure vary between 0 and 2 hail days per year. So we can see that in northern Istria we have somewhere above 1 hail day per year. Although I did check some stations and we do have reports from Istria which are higher than 2, Pazin, Istarske Vodice and stuff. But then there is very high sensitivity of data which makes the biggest impact on this. So if you consider only warmer part of the year, daytime measurements and stuff like that, those are really, it's important. With respect to the new method, so we already mentioned radar estimates. So in the last 15 years, the attention goes toward radar. Basic approach is that if you have radar reflectivity above 45 dBz's, and then if you consider like height of the cloud, the freezing point, and so you can try to make some proxy with which you will derive some sort of a hail estimate. So I mentioned that Germany in 2011, NISI did the same for Alpine region, and Stržinar and Skok published a couple of months ago the Slovenian climatology and a lot of methodology about how to do it. So they are probably a nice starting point for anybody who would like to go in that direction. Second thing is radar estimates, which I will talk a bit later on, basically using overshooting tops. And the newest of them all is lightning estimates. Nowadays we have a lot of lightning networks which are providing data on a very high spatial and temporal resolution with reasonable accuracy. And one of the things which emerged from this is a lightning jump, which is basically a sudden increase in lightning activity, which was successfully correlated with activities within some thunderstorm cloud. Basically, if you get a sudden increase in activity, that means that your upstream updraft, thank you. The updraft is intensifying, allowing the collisions between ice pellets and ice crystals to intensify, giving the sudden electrification of a cloud. And hopefully for the next seminar I will talk a lot about lightning jump and outdoors presented here. And then there are some attempts in forecasting and modeling. I know that WRF has some routine which is trying to simulate and forecast the hail, but this is just beginnings and testing phase. So hopefully in several years we will have some better results. Okay, so now we are going towards our shooting tops and see what the authors offered in the second paper published in 2017. Basically what they did, they used the Meteosat second generation satellite data for 10 years. Beta in 2011 developed an algorithm with which you can extract the overshooting top locations, and after they ran this algorithm for every 15 minutes throughout the 10 years, they got around 700,000 overshooting top informations. Of course, not all of them are overshooting tops, so there's false detections, and not all overshooting tops are necessarily connected with the hail. Plus, they use only warmer part of the year, which is very important to remember. So they used area interim reanalysis on best possible resolution every 6 hours to collect cape, wind shear and freezing level height. With that, they tried to filter out all misinterpreted locations or non-hail events. To do so, they used European Severe Database hail reports. Out of 12,000 of them, they found 2,500 which have a very precise information about the time, size and all other parameters with which they derived the filtering system, setting the thresholds for the cape, and after they went through all 700,000, they managed to filter out 23% of the data which are flagged suspicious or not hail connected. So once they smoothed this figure, which is basically just overshooting top distribution, and did some spatial interpolation, they generated the first type of European-wide hail climatology assessment based on the 10 years of data on theoretically resolution 10 times 10 kilometers, but it is triangular, it's smoothed with 60 kilometers, so okay, it's around 60 to 100 kilometer resolution. What we can see immediately from the figure is that most of the hail activity is concentrated around the mountain tops. It's nice to see that it matches with NICI's result. So the pre-Alpine region and the north side of the Alps do have maximum high intensities, but the central part of mountain tops stuff don't have any, which is a nice information. Again, Massive Centrales, Pyrenees, Alpinian mountains popped up. Dinaric Alps also showed up. Poland. So method is valid. If we compare these results with Portugal's results of Croatia, then it seems that they are not matching well, because Croatia falls within 0.6 and 0.1 hail day per year, which we know that it's much higher. But then, since I was in the correspondence with the authors, at some point he was kind enough to send me unofficially with a bit more detailed, unsmoothed chart of Croatia. And immediately we can see that the values which are maxing out at the Croatian line borders are between 1.4 and 1.6. So this is already much better approximation, although in Istria we still have small values. But to talk about overshooting top, which is like 10 kilometers above the ground, and hail measured down, it's very at this high resolution, it's not so, what to say, healthy, because at least the cloud system can be angled enough to let's say, maybe at this point is corresponding to passing and stuff. But it does illustrate that some regions which we expect to have higher hail do really have higher hail. Okay, with this.
What is the red? Mountains?
Yes. Red represents some mountains contouring, I'm guessing, every 500 meters or something like that. And we can see that actually the Bosnian is quite active, although we don't have any data to compare with. And the Serbians didn't, the measurements from Serbia are also reasonable, because at this region they also reported the highest hail frequency. Of course, since they considered very small ice pellets to be a hail, their frequency is much higher. But okay, so I will go slowly towards the conclusions. So overall conclusion is that hail frequencies with respect to in situ measurements are between 0 and 4 hail days per year. We measure hail throughout the Europe, from Greece to northest points of Sweden. Maximums, of course, are concentrated around the hills, which are basically the natural barrier for the convection and enhancer of convection. Majority of the hail falls between 40 and 50 degrees north, although those results are based on summer measurements, but in any case I think they are quite okay. Croatia is still missing the national climatology. We did some progress and we are still working and progressing further on, so I'm sure that in following years we will fill up that gap. Potential usage of remote sensing is quite high. It really allows us to fill the gaps between the measurements, which are very scarce basically. Nobody yet showed European-wide information about annual cycle of hail, and hopefully it will show, because I saw on some other publications, I have a figure if you will be interested, just with respect to the Mediterranean lightning activities, that there is a very weak seasonal cycle, and as Greece reported, they have a maximum during the year, and half of the studies just concentrated on the warmer part. We still don't have any standardized methodology with which we are approaching the results. And of course the biggest problem is spatial and temporal variability of hail. Like last week in Istria, we were collecting plates from the hail pads, and several hail-bearing clouds passed throughout the Istria, and we managed to pick 2 or 3 of them, and we saw by driving the car like a massive damages all around the place, but nothing went over our measurement station. Above all, probably for me most interesting part, so those are results based on 33 measurement stations located in Istria. This is number of days with hail within a particular year. After 1963, the number of stations participating in this are more or less constant, and we can see that fluctuations of hail, in the sense of how many days the hail is present, can vary between like 25 one year and 11 the next year. Then we can have gaps of several years with no significant hail activity, or even we can have like 15 years with a hail activity which is close to or above some, let's call it an average state of the hail. So if we would to do any climatology and inter-comparison, why did Slovenians had such a small amount of hail in Istria? Because they used maybe a wrong period, or we cannot compare our results because they are for 60 years and they took only 10 years of data. So this is very sensitive, and whoever works with it really has to be aware of all those little trips and steps standing on the way. And the last comment is the media. Last several years we got really high and big space in the media, and we are recognized as a branch in it, and I think we should really consider to use it as much as possible, because now is the time. They really want to report everything which is connected to weather phenomena, especially the severe ones. And with thank you, I will show you just the last picture from the terrain. This is Sveti Petar u Šumi, Tuesday, hail size of the walnuts. This is the hail pad plates. This is the flowers they managed to cover. The same flowers were growing here. They bought brand new, very hard chairs. I was sitting on them, very comfortable, but the hail managed to damage them. And of course, this should have been shade over their balcony, which is now looking like a autumn vine. So thank you for your attention, and please continue with the questions.
So thank you especially for your time. Questions?
It's good.
Okay, so I'm really happy, thank you, that somebody is really getting into the hail research and hail climatology. It was kind of a taboo topic in the last century in the last years. So I'm really happy that somebody is going into it, and I think there is a lot of material to investigate. First of all, we have to be aware that the measurements, as you said, are too scarce to cover and the number you say between 1 and 2 hail days is funny for me, because we know that there are, like, in one area much more than that. Even in the last week we already had much more than that. So this is something that we really have to study very carefully, and my suggestion would be, besides of course using the hail beds and all the other, we have to concentrate much more on radar data, because this is actually the only data that gives you the real distribution. So either to use the raw radar data and to make some special post-processing that will give you the idea how if nothing for the continental part where you have the data, but you have them for a long time, and then you can have more detailed data. This is one point, and of course satellite data is another possibility. However, the satellite data, this is what Betka did, I know, because we were doing a lot of things together. He uses the method which is actually based on infrared data to be able to do it night and day. And this is not very precise. Visible data should be used for the overshooting top detection, but then you only have half of a day. So this is, you have pros and cons. That's why radar data are most reliable, because you have them 24 hours. They're always the same, and they cover pretty much the whole area.
Towards that comment, I would add that Gregor Scott, the last publication they gave was actually a shockingly low frequency. That they presented very low frequencies. Because we know for Slovenia that there is a hail. Okay, they did use a resolution of 1 kilometer, so maybe that cuts a bit
but
out.
also maybe they used a big hailstone, 5 centimeter, because according to a severe weather database, only hail larger than 3. Are you sure? Okay.
Yeah, I know. Usually people, when trying to analyze stuff, that they tend to take 5 and above.
The problem with the European severe weather database is that not everybody, you don't get most not even 20% of the cases reported.
Yeah.
Because somebody has to report into the database, it has to get controlled, because most of the reports have to be controlled by the National Met Service, otherwise they are not considered to be valid. So the problem is the number of the reports.
Data loss is quite high.
What I would also suggest, and I know that you young people are fond of that, we should make an application that would enable you to report the size of the hail from your mobile phone. This is what Swiss did, and based on that they did quite a nice climatology. So they have a very simple application where you have the sizes of the hail, and then you just click on it, and the mobile reads your GPS location, and it reports into the database. So this is something that we should consider. This is what Tanya did for the water spouts, and we got quite a nice climatology of water spouts based on reports of the people from the terrain. So this is something that can be combined then. And of course then you can verify your radar data with the reports, and then some kind of adjustment to the radar information. So just a suggestion, but I'm really happy that it's finally being done.
Question to you and to Natasha. Do you know if new radars that will be acquired by Weather Service will have a differential reflectivity capabilities?
Dual polarization.
Yeah, we will try to buy the readers with dual pole. Yeah.
That would be awesome.
It would be awesome. We always shocked while installing that somewhere. Yeah, we plan to make much better
like to hear your opinion about the possibility possibility of the lightning jump as a method of, is it better or worse, or maybe, I don't know, compared with other methods? Do you have opinion now, or you don't have?
Well,
Any clue
I have a
about it?
figure.
Okay.
So this is a figure. Compared to overshooting top methodology, so the overshooting top is something which is seen from above, and it has unreliable in sense of detection, especially during the night. Lightning is quite easy because it has a quite strong network and you can really triangulate the lightning strikes up to 100 meters. Lightning jump climate methodology actually is operational nowadays. So Spain, some I think in Germany or France are using the information about lightning jump as a nowcasting variable for I think already 2 or 3 years. In sense that if the lightning jump occurs, chances for hail strike or outbursts or tornado are quite high, and majority of those jumps go actually towards the hail, so approximately 70 or 80% of lightning jumps are connected to the hail. So the potential usage of it, I think it's quite good, because one thunderstorm generates quite a number of strikes, and as we have more strikes basically means that we are having more intense storm. So to find a connection between the lightning jumps and the hail should be very, very good and is very promising, I think. This is actually an attempt of climatology based on a lightning jump. It is purely the lightning jump at a resolution of 10 kilometers throughout the 8 years of data I do have, which include winter period also. And it seems to correspond well with the overshooting top analysis, which has a bit different period. So we are here between 2008 and 2015. Here we are between 2004 and 2014, which is very tricky, as I mentioned earlier. So they are not directly comparable. Plus, some of those lightning jumps probably are false alarms, which we have to detect. Some of them are probably just because there are some outbursts, or we didn't have so much tornadoes, but maybe whirlpools and stuff. And this is something which should be filtered out, and then we will probably have some reasonable measure. How well it will perform, it's to be seen, but what I did for now, it shows that around 70% of hail, which was recorded, was followed with a lightning jump in, let's say, vicinity of around 20-25 kilometers from the station. So I would say it's a fair guess.
What is the number?
Number means how many jumps per pixel.
Okay.
So my algorithms.
So you see nicely the color on top of the...
Yeah. Of course. You see all the antennas there are
You see all the antennas.
placed over the hills, but this is something which is easily filtered out, so it doesn't pose research problem.
How big is your lightning jump criteria?
That's tricky.
What is the number?
It is very sensitive to the resolution. Here, this particular figure is 1.3 sigma, but this is an arbitrary value I choose. I was working on the 4x4 kilometer grid, and it is around 1.1 sigma. But if you iterate it a bit, it also starts to fluctuate, so it's very hard to determine what is the precise boundary which would represent directly, and then there are some other statistical attempts which I'm trying to apply to see.
Okay, especially if you have a storm with a lot of lightning, then it's...
The trick with this method is actually that all the points are fixed. So if the storm is passing, that's the reason. The standard approach is 2 sigma.
Yeah.
So So the nowcasters use the 2 sigma threshold, but they are observing the whole system as a one unit, and of course they have like thousands of flashes. I'm standing within the pixel, and whatever passes over it is computed separately. So, and that way I'm getting a trail of small lightning jumps, let's say, of the system. And that trail, I'm pretending that this trail could be also a trail of hail passing through.